I'm absolutely baffled by a statement that Kody made when they were visiting Mykelti, where he was like, "Oh, Robyn and I have been looking at this house and it's much bigger, and I'd love to get a big house where you guys could come and live with us or stay with us. I'd like to get a house that's big enough for the whole family to come back and stay." And there's many, many, many things that I find confusing with that. The first off is they were looking at houses even 2 years ago. They were looking to move even 2 years ago. Which is wild because they have this huge house, but he's like, "Oh, it's so tiny that no one can come visit because there's no rooms and all that." And I'm like, they have a big house. They have a pretty big house. So I found that confusing, but always I'm confused by how can they afford this? Because based on their lifestyle and the fact that, Kody likes to talk about his business, but really his job is the show. And since Christine, Mary, and Janelle left, they're making significantly less. And I've said this before, we don't know how much they're making. But on the high end, they are not making millions of dollars a year. Based on the numbers I've heard the high end might be for Kody and Robyn combined like 200,000. They have 2 kids in private Christian school. From what I've heard, they had or have somewhere between 2 and 3 kids in college that I assume that they're kind of paying off. They are constantly traveling. They're constantly shopping. Every time we see them, they have more art on the wall, expensive art too. All of that. So I don't understand how they can afford it. And a real estate agent sent me some information that I haven't shared publicly, but it was basically showed all the loans on their house when it was listed. And they have a considerable amount of, as the value went up, they got home equity loans or something like that. She explained it, but I don't do that, so I don't know. So that confused me that they can afford to move into a bigger home. Secondly, the part that's confusing to me is just the fact that this idea that they think, like, why would they think it's a good idea? Like, Tony Mykelti would want to come live with them and the 3 kids. Maybe he's trying to recreate the cul-de-sac when Caleb and Maddie and their oldest, was it just the one kid at the time? I believe. Yeah, it would have been. Come live with them. They thought that's the same thing. They could recreate that. The idea that he's barely speaking to any of the kids. And the impression I got is, I feel like if he had a really good relationship with a lot of kids, he would have named them. I just think that's the kind of guy he is. And so when he's talking about the relationships that were good beforehand have sustained, I'm a little dubious. I think there's a number of children that, like Savannah, are taking what they can from their dad when they can, with the awareness that this is not a full relationship. Does that make sense? That would be my guess. With, it sounds like all of Janelle's kids are out, but it sounds like maybe Aspen, maybe Isabel, maybe Truly are sort of these relationships that he, anyway. So we'll see. The fact that I feel like if it was, knowing him, if it was good, he would just be saying it outright. But also, so sometimes people are like, "Oh, but I thought all the kids had moved out at 18. Well, technically that was just Gabe and Garrison that he said that about. He wanted Aspen to stay. He wanted Logan to stay. He wanted everybody else to stay. But it's also a really weird thing to say on national TV in the same interview where he's calling them all a bunch of liars and saying, they're not listening to their mom and he's not going to chase after them. But then to turn around and be like, "Well, I want to have a house big enough for everybody to come out." And I have no doubt he wants a big house. I'm sure of it. I'm sure he wants a big house. He wants lots of cars. He wants, I just don't know how he's going to accomplish it on this TV money when he seems to be spending it as fast as he has. And the fact that he has to keep pulling out these loans is not a great sign for, like, you know what I mean? Like, if he's making that much money and he's still not able to make ends meet, not a great sign for him and his eventual business empire. So I thought that was a really bizarre comment, and it's really stuck in my head. So